Thank you, everybody, for being here. This MRL subcommittee meeting is being conducted pursuant to the provisions of the Brown Act to facilitate teleconferencing and to reduce the risk of COVID-19 transmission at public meetings. Ordinarily, the Brown Act sets strict rules for teleconferencing. AB 361 suspends some of these rules during a state of emergency where state and local health officials have recommended social distancing. The Brown Act continues to require that we notice meetings in advance and allow the public to participate. The EBCE MRL subcommittee has met all the applicable notice requirements, and the public is welcome to participate in this meeting. If you wish to be recognized during public comment, please fill out the public comment speaker form at ebce.org/meetings and use the raise hand feature in Zoom. You'll be recognized for 3 minutes. Comments can also be submitted online at ebce.org/meetings. And with that, I would like to take roll.
Let's go for it.
Great, thank you very much. Member Tiedemann.
Here.
Great, thank you. Member Harris. Member Kumagai. Member Monroe.
I'm here.
Thank you. Chair Patino.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay. Now next is public comment. This item is reserved for persons wishing to address the Marketing, Regulatory, and Legislative Subcommittee on any EBCE related matters that are not otherwise on this agenda. Public comment on matters listed on the agenda shall be heard at the time the matter is called. As with all public comment, members of the public who wish to address the Marketing, Regulatory, and Legislative Subcommittee are customarily limited to 3 minutes per speaker. The MRL chair may increase or decrease the time allotted to each speaker. Okay, so do we have any public comment?
Yes, we have one speaker for public comment. Recognize Jeffrey Wong for 3 minutes.
Hello, thank you so much for this public comment period. My name is Jeffrey Wong. I am a sustainability analyst for the city of Oakland. And I just wanted to uplift, I know Dan actually was in this call yesterday that we had with cities about the mailer that's going out about the EBC's power content label for 2021. And it looks pretty damning, to say the least, that, you know, EBCE's baseline power is 23% more emissions than sort of the average California mix. And this was definitely not sort of the intent of when, you know, Oakland and other jurisdictions decided to form EBCE as a joint power authority so that we can help mitigate our greenhouse gas emissions. And so I just really want to impress to the board that, you know, we should never let this happen again, where EBCE emissions are greater than the California average, even though I know that there are reports that it's trending towards the net zero goal by 2030. So just wanted to reiterate that not only Oakland, but other, you know, member jurisdictions, city governments are also pretty concerned about the high level of emissions that are going to be publicly broadcasted in the power content label mailer. So that's all. Thank you so much for your time.
Great, thank you very much.
Okay, is that it for public comments?
There are no further speakers for public comment.
Okay, now we have approval of the minutes from June 3rd, 2022. Do we have anybody that has any questions or wants to make any changes? Seeing none, hearing none, I will take a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Okay, Director Tiedemann has moved
Second.
it. Second from who was that? Was that
Monroe.
Monroe? Okay. So seconded by Board Member Monroe. Let's do a vote.
Great, thank you very much. Member Tiedemann.
Yes.
Member Harrison. Member Kumagai. Member Monroe.
Yes.
Chair Patino.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, next item is a regulatory update. This is informational. Let's go forward.
Thank you, Chair Patino. This is Todd Edmister. I'm the Director of Reg Affairs for EBC. Adrian, we got, I think, a little deck. You're driving.
Yes.
So this is really just a heads up for you all, no surprises. about the most recent PG&E Energy Resources Recovery Account Act filing. This is the filing that sets the bundle generation rate for next year and also the power charge and difference adjustment or PCIA rate for next year. Next slide, please. I'd mentioned that this was upcoming in our last call, so I wanted to follow up now that we've actually seen it and let you guys know what we saw in it, as well as give you a preview of kind of where we think that's going to end up come next year. Next slide, please. So just to level set again, this is the proceeding that sets the bundle generation rate, and it's the bundle generation rate less the PCIA, the power charge and difference adjustment, that in turn drives our retail rate, which is essentially just a discount off of that essentially remainder generation rate. So PG&E filed its annual request for a new 2023 generation rate at the end of May. And the upshot of it is that it reduces the overall bundle generation rate by about 2 cents per kWh. So, it takes it from around 15, 16 cents, depending on your customer class and your vintage, to around 14 cents, from 16 cents to around 14 cents. Now, there's also been some movement in the PCIA, which is helpful. So the PCIA is dropping in that filing by about 0.5 cent. But the overall effect of this is to reduce the generation rate by about 0.5 cent, or sorry, by about 1.5 cents. Now, there are a lot of reasons for this. One having to do really with sort of the timing of various changes for bundled versus unbundled customers. We had overpaid in 2021. We got a bunch of that back in 2022. Now those things have offset each other, and we're coming back to more sort of a normal relationship with the bundled customers. But that means we get less headroom than we got previous year. 2023 we'll be getting actually less revenue comparatively versus 2022. So all of this is still subject to litigation. We filed on the 7th testimony from one of our experts that would increase the headroom somewhat by about 10%. So it brings us closer to a 1 cent reduction than a 1.5 cent reduction. Then we're seeing in the current filing. We'll see where that shakes out. The way that things are trending, we also are expecting to see the PCIA drop even more than was reflected in this May filing. That would also tend to increase our headroom. So we think what we're seeing right here at the end of May is an outer bound for increases, or excuse me, for decreases in our headroom. We'll have a better sense in about 3 weeks when we get what's called now the October update, which is essentially a rework of the May filing to reflect actual energy prices over the ensuing 5 months. And I'll report back to you guys on what we see come that update at the next meeting. So anyway, again, no surprises. If you have questions, happy to entertain them. Otherwise, I'll check back in with you guys when we get revised numbers in October. All right.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, I just had one question. So would this actually go down to actually lower people's bills?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I know with our city, we're looking to go to Resilient 100, but one of the issues was that the cost to our commercial customers would be significant. So would that help? That would help a bit.
Yeah. All else equal, you're gonna see a drop in the rate, right? Because our rate is pegged to PG&E's rate. PG&E's rate goes down, our rate goes down.
Mhm.
And so the negative to that as an org is that it results in reduced revenue, but the positive is it's lower rates for customers, which is good. The exact decline in the rate is going to depend on the particular customer class.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Does anybody else have any questions? Okay, so thank you very much, Todd. And we will now go to the legislative update.
All right, thank you all for having me here today. Adrian, I'll give you a moment to pull up the slide.
Great, thank you.
My name is Alec Ward. I'm the Associate Policy Manager at EDCE. Just going to give you all a quick update on state and federal legislative activities. It's been a so a lot to update. Y'all may have called it in the news, but there was especially a large flurry of climate and energy related bills that popped up around the last couple of weeks of session, and a lot of them were even kind of a surprise for a lot of legislators. So there was a lot to track, a lot to delve into. But I'll focus most of this meeting on the 10 or so bills that the board has taken an official position on. But the big takeaway here is that the governor had pushed through a large priority item for him, which was extending Diablo Canyon nuclear plant for a maximum of 5 years. This bill was obviously very controversial, but two other budget bills were passed near the same time, and that added to billions of dollars that we can now access, covering items like reliability, building decarb, renewable energies, EVs, distributed resources, just a large package of potential here. So these were all passed in addition to the budget bills that we saw earlier this year. I have out in front of you all the legislative steps that we've been working through this year. You can see that we're at the bottom of that now. So we had that flurry of bills. Last day to pass any bills was August 31st. And then right now we're at the step where the governor is signing throughout this month all of these the bills that have passed or vetoing, but obviously a large majority are being signed. In fact, just now I was watching before I hopped on here. He signed a lot of the bills I'll be walking through today. So very timely. Next slide, please. So I'll start with the tracking that we're doing on the assembly side, the bills that we took a position on, and bills that we were watching. 14, you all might remember this. We had bill support PCAs to apply for funding through PUC for transportation electrification programs. Fortunately, this bill faced heavy opposition and was withdrawn by the author. We have AB 1960. This also had board support. This supported more regional diversity for PUC commissioners and would help increase the diversity of these commissioners to better reflect diversity across the state. We'd supported it. The governor actually ended up vetoing this, claiming that it would impede on his ability to pick the commissioners. And he stated that he has already been considering geographic diversity and representation, so that the bill was unnecessary. AB 2061, this was actually a watch bill. It requires data disclosure for EV charger stations and orders the CEC to assess reliability and equitability issues. We successfully worked with the author's office to make sure this won't become too burdensome for EV customers. And this bill was passed and it's now awaiting the governor's signature. AB 2667, this was actually a bill that the board initially supported. It would be creating a broad fund for the CEC for customers that want to adopt distributed energy resources. But the author ended up taking out a provision that we liked, that EBC could apply for its customers. We think that would have been helpful, would have helped bolster a lot of our programs, and actually ended up adding language that would harm microgrid development. It essentially would turn third-party microgrid developers into regulated utilities. So it faced heavy opposition. We were opposed unless amend, unless this harmful language was taken out. And it ended up actually continuing as it was written, but it ended up failing on the floor of the Senate. And then last on the assembly side, AB 2765, this we had board support on it, created a new general fund to cover the costs of the PUC public purpose programs instead of relying, as they currently do, to fund these programs on the electrical rates of our customers. would have helped with affordability, but unfortunately did not make it out of the Assembly Appropriations Committee. And we go to the next slide. Great. Layered 1020. So this we had board support. It was a three-part bill. The first one set new interim targets for California to reach renewable energy goals, 90% by 2035, 95 by 2040. 95 by 2040. So EBC has higher targets, obviously. So we're supportive of also increasing the targets and interim targets for other entities, but we of course would have no problem reaching these new goals. Also, state agencies must now become 100% clean energy by 2035. So we were supportive if amended, and this is where if the amended came in, we successfully worked with the author's office for an amendment that would really remove some unnecessary and restrictive requirements and make it a lot easier for us to offer our state agency partners our 100% clean energy. So that was successful. We're also looking for some amendments of the Clean Equity and Trust Fund that was in this bill. It would have helped with electric bill affordability, but unfortunately, all of the equity bill trust funds language was all stripped out. So it basically turned just into an increasing goals bill. That was passed, and it is actually, this was certainly one of the ones that was just signed about 30 minutes ago. SB 1063 authorizes the CEC to make new technology standards effective sooner. This we had board support. It would help the commission accelerate availability for water use efficiency technologies during drought, during times of great stress on the grid. This was passed and is now awaiting signature. SB 1112, supported by the board. It's a technical bill increasing reporting that counties do on their decarb programs. We see this bill as necessary to help support future tariff on bill financing work that we may want to do, which would help open up a lot of our programs to more customers. So this was passed and is currently waiting signature. SB 1158, this was a watch bill. This changes the power disclosure standards to become more granular. CalCCA was successful leading the effort to work with the author to make some amendments. So CCAs wouldn't hit any hangups while applying with this, and it was passed and is now awaiting signature. The last two, SB 1385 was oppose and let's amend. This was that the CPUC must establish a utility-owned storage plus solar and storage multifamily housing solar and storage program for each IOU. We didn't want this bill to be used in a way that the utilities could kind of poach our customers. So we wanted clarification that it would not apply to CCA customers. We were successful in working with the author's office on making this happen, but in the end of the day, the bill was held in a purpose and did not move forward. Last one here, 1393. This ordered local governments to obtain approval from the CEC for any local requirements that mandate the replacement of fossil fuel appliances with electric appliances in existing buildings. We are very supportive of our cities going above and beyond on electrification standards, and we saw this as potentially harmful and burdensome for cities that were trying to do this. So we were opposed, and it ended up not moving forward and was held in appropriations. So last one, I promise. This is a lot to throw at you, I know, but the next slide, Adrian, will take us to the federal side of things. And this one, we had a very massive win. And we had board support on the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022. It's extremely exciting. It was signed by the president after a very rocky road towards passage. It's now the single largest investment in clean energy in American history, reducing carbon pollution 40% by 2030. So the bill has many provisions we're interested in and currently analyzing. $369 billion to invest broadly in climate and clean energy. We're especially looking at the clean energy tax credits, $60 billion in environmental justice priorities that make sure that this money is really touching down where it's needed most, and just billions in funding and multiple new programs for energy efficiency, building decarb, resiliency. There's a big electric vehicle tax credit, so a lot of provisions that our customers and EBC will be able to directly access. So we'll be working this whole next year to be implementing this program. So overall, the takeaway is that this was a really extremely successful legislative year. We had many serious attacks that came up against the CCAs, especially at the end. There were a couple of very concerning provisions that made it in that flurry of bills that we were able to defeat. But B, we were also able to play some great offense, and we created and helped fund just dozens of new programs, tens of billions of new funding for these programs, hundreds of billions if you count the federal package here as well, and new funding that we can build out our renewable energy and also make it so that we can expand a lot of the great programs that we're currently offering. So just wanted to thank the board for their great support this year. And we look forward to implementing and working on these programs and provisions for the rest of this year. So I will pause here for any questions, and that concludes the presentation.
Okay, thank you, Alec. Do we have any questions from anybody on the board here?
I don't have a question, but I would, oops. There we go. I just wanted to say I really appreciate the walkthrough and the you bringing us up to date on this. It really is it's been a good year.
It has.
Aside from the weather, it's you know, which is not under your control. This is great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, definitely a heavy lift throughout the year, but when you look back, it's just some great stuff that we were able to accomplish. Anybody else have any comments or questions?
There are no speakers for public comment.
Okay. Alec, this kind of is related. Last week when I was over at the League of California Cities conference, Antonio Villaraigosa, the former mayor of LA, he spoke to us, and I actually got to talk to him by ourselves for a little bit. And he's now the governor appointed him as the infrastructure czar for the state. And he says that there's going to be about $47 billion in state funds, and they're going to try to leverage that for another 100 for a total of 100 billion. Would you happen to know of any legislation that's coming through that would channel that money out that that maybe we could use in the near future?
So the legislation there has been set. I imagine it was the infrastructure bill that was passed at the federal level last November. So right now, the agencies at the federal and state level are creating these programs, and EBC has been very engaged. We've been attending the workshops. I've had multiple meetings with the PUC and the CEC, and we've already targeted about 6 programs or potentially more that we want to apply for. And we expect, the grants to open up probably in the coming months, in the next month or so. But yeah, all of this is very much on our radar. But I'm not sure on the legislative side if there'll be any, tweaks or alterations to it on the federal, or if the state will need to pass anything to help implement. But I haven't heard of anything needed on that end.
Okay, I'm just wondering. Thank you. The next item is marketing and account services updates. That be you,
All
Dan?
right. Yeah, I'll take
Okay.
it. Annie is on PTO. And I think Adrian has a deck that I can talk through. All right, thanks. And you can just click to the next slide. And yeah, so the things I'll focus on here are our team is expanding, the marketing and account services team. And then I'll talk about the power content label mailer that's going out at the end of this month, and the cities that are transitioning in October to Renewable 100 service. So starting with the new hires, we have 3 new members of our team, which is a lot for a small team, but we're really happy to have these folks on board. I'm sure you'll meet them over time. Sophie is a Bay Area local. She grew up around here, I think went to Berkeley High, and came to us from doing marketing and communications at Catahoula Coffee, which if you haven't been there, definitely check it out. They have a great retail shop in Richmond. not in our service area, but delicious coffee. And she's doing marketing content, social media, that sort of thing. Then Katya Sievert, she joined in July. So Sophie joined in June. Katya started in July. She's the programs marketing coordinator, reporting to Lori, and just doing a great job keeping everything in order for the increasing amount of programs marketing that we're doing. I'll mention that she went to McAllister College, which is where I went, and also Diego from our data team. So we now have 3 staff members from this tiny liberal arts college in Minnesota. I couldn't be more proud to have some other MAC alums on our team. And then Teresa McDermott, who will join next week. She will be our head of brand, brings a lot to the table, worked recently for Atlassian, which has products like Confluence and Jira. And she was the lead person for them, sort of going through brand evaluation when they went public as a company. And she'll be a great addition. And then we have a couple of other open roles. Part of this is a build out because we're doing more work. We have a larger service area. We have more programs. And then also we're building in a little bit of redundancy because, early on when one person would go on PTO, it was very hard to continue some of the workflow. So building in a little bit of redundancy there. And next there's a org chart. On the next slide, and you can see the ones that are highlighted are relatively new positions to our team. So happy to be building out the team and keeping very busy. And the next slide. Yeah, so moving into the mailer. So there are 2 mailers that EBCE is required to do to all customers annually. One of them is the Power Content Label, or PCL, and the other is the Joint Rate Mailer, JRM. And they're slightly different functions. While they do have some similarities, I'll just go through these quickly. So the Power Content Label, which we're doing now, it's required by the California Energy Commission. It has to be received by customers by October 1st. It's a comparison of power content and not of rates. So the required content in there is comparing the source of electricity and not the rates themselves. And it compares our power content to state average, not to PG&E. And that's all a required element of the mailer. I'll show you that in detail. And then it goes to the customers that EBCE served in 2021, every customer that we serve. So it sort of shows them, hey, this is what you got when we sold you electricity. And we send that out to customers primarily by email. If the customer has an email on file with PG&E, we email it. And if they don't, then we send them a hard copy mailer, and I'll provide more detail about that coming up. And then the joint rate mailer is something that we did recently. That's required by the Public Utilities Commission. It has to go out by July 1st. We do that in cooperation closely with PG&E. It compares our rates to PG&E rates, and it goes to all EBCE customers, or any customer that's even eligible for EBCE service. So even if they've opted out, they get this mailer. And it's just the comparison of rates. There's no other content. As you'll see with the Power Content Label, we can format it the way we want, the mailer itself. The joint rate mailer, it's just that nutritional label, and we can't adjust it in any way. We can't change the color or the content. So let's do a deep dive into the Power Content Label mailer. This view is just all of the panels, and I'll go into these in more detail, but this is sort of a flat screen view of the 6-panel mailer that we do. This is the hard copy version, and of course we do an email version that flows from top to bottom. This is one of EBCE's main touch points with customers. It has to have that nutritional label that you see in the upper left. That nutritional label part can't be adjusted in any way, but the rest of the content can. And so we use this as almost like a mini annual report for customers to show what's happened, what's coming up. And, it's just a great opportunity for us to sort of brag and have an annual report. As I mentioned, it goes primarily by email. We get a file that has all of the customer addresses, we send it. And in fact, then when we get bounces or failed emails, we take those customers and we put them into the mailing pile for the hard copy. So we're really taking great care to make sure that every customer gets this information. We're doing this, the print run is in English. The email version will have links for 4 other languages. And then we will also post this in Spanish and in Chinese on our website on the Spanish and Chinese pages. And it's just a great opportunity to remind the customers of the value we offer, what programs we're offering, what projects have been developed over the last year and so forth. So if you want to click through to the next, I'll just take this one panel at a time. I guess this is 2 panels at a time, one fold at a time. You can see it has this sort of trifold format, so that when you're viewing it, you'll see 2 panels simultaneously. The one that's above and to the left here is a photo of the Luciana solar project, which came online in the last year. And then the other side is that nutritional label that has the mix. And actually, I have a separate slide on that. So why don't we click forward and I'll talk through that last. This is the next panel, and you can see that we focused on, as we have in past years with this mailer, we focused on the 3 primary pillars of our value proposition, which is green power, low rates, and local benefits. And so you can see the upper piece, which is the green power and low rates panel, just highlighting things that are happening currently. We have more projects online. That's a project, that wind power project that came online that's in New Mexico. So it's not the Scott Haggerty Wind Energy Center, but a new project that was built out this year. And then on the right, we have a photo of the winner of an e-bike giveaway that we did at a Roots game, and mention of the savings that we're going to have for customers on Bright Choice in this fiscal year. And then the lower panel is highlighting some of the new programs and such that we're doing. First, it has a list of the communities we serve. We feel like that's important information. We still have relatively low brand awareness, so just reminding people who we are, and that we're giving care customers a $50 bill credit, and that we're on the path to clean energy by 2030, and then their choices are at the bottom. And then moving along to the next one. This one is, the photo is of induction cooktop. And so we're featuring our induction cooktop lending program here. And this is the 3rd pillar of our value proposition, which is local investment. And then the last panel is just sort of a general statement about our commitment to the community. We did something similar last year. It wasn't the same wording, but just sort of wrapping it up with just a big picture reminder of who we are. And then you'll see each of these, we have a consistent format where there's a little nugget of info, and then at the bottom, a URL that the customer can go to learn more about that particular program or topic. And then in the email, it'll be hot linked, of course, in the hard copy mailer. People will just have to visit that website. And then going to this last slide. Yeah, so this is the detail of the power content label itself. This table will be shared in various places, in this publication, but also like the CEC has a web page that shows all of the power content labels. And as in public comment earlier, Jeffrey Wong from City of Oakland brought up this comparison of the state and Bright Choice. There's actually one cleanup on this document that will look different in the final. You can see under Bright Choice, it says 563.94. We'll actually round that on the final version to 564. And Yeah, it's unfortunate that our emissions factor is higher than the state. It's higher than PG&E this year. But I think that, you know, at least for the folks who have been on the board for a while, you'll recall that the board, declined the nuclear allocation. And at that time, BCE staff, you know, made it clear that there was a pathway here. If we declined the nuclear, that we would have a high emissions factor. If we accepted the nuclear, that we would have a low emissions factor. And so here we are, we're seeing the results of that decision. And, you know, I think the good news is that we are on a path to carbon free, you know, for all customers by 2030. And that'll be somewhat of a straight line path down. And we have no control over what happens at PG&E or the state. You know, the hydro amount was low this year. That led to higher emissions for all, but also for Bright Choice. And yeah, I think I'll probably stop with that editorializing and move along, but happy to answer questions when we get to the end of the presentation. And I think we have a couple more slides here. Yeah, so yeah, just finally, we have the topic of these 4 cities that are having customers mass opted up into Renewable 100 in October. Those 4 cities are Berkeley, Dublin, Emeryville, and San Leandro. Emeryville is doing both residential and commercial. The other cities have already transitioned their residential customers to Renewable 100. They're doing it in 2 phases. So we've been doing a very active amount of marketing, outreach, and education. Each customer is getting at least 2 notices because we're doing print to everyone and we're doing email to everyone who has an email on file. We're doing paid print and digital ads, which are geo-targeted, social media. We put info in our newsletters. We put info available for the city newsletters, posted on Nextdoor, meetings with chambers of commerce. We held a series of webinars for interested customers, and we recorded those and posted them to the web. And then we've actually done a bunch of events. It's not listed here, but we were at Emeryville National Night Out. We were at Swano Stroll in Berkeley. We did a multi-chamber of commerce event that I think was in Dublin. So really just doing everything we can to inform customers. And then the last slide is showing some results, some preliminary results. So what we keep an eye on is how many opt-outs have there been since we started doing promotional activity. So since we started informing customers, which was at the beginning of August, until now, how many opt-outs do we have from those customers? And how many people are clicking remain on Bright Choice? So these customers, even though they're being automatically placed into Renewable 100, they have the opportunity to click a button to just stay on Bright Choice rather than opting out. And when we see higher rates of remain on than of opting out, I see that as a healthy customer response because it shows that the customers are being informed and they'd rather stay with us than return to PG&E service. They just don't want to pay a premium. And that's fine. I'd rather have them, you know, remain on than opt out. So that's, I see high remain on rates as a positive thing. And as you'll see, the opt-out rates have been extremely low, a fraction of 1% of opt-out, way below percent of opt-outs as a result of this. And I'd say a healthy amount of remain-ons. So I think we're pleased, and these are, I think, even lower than the last time we did the mass opt-up to Renewable 100. So we're applying a few lessons learned, and I think we're keeping the opt-outs even lower than we have in the past. And I think that is, oh, the last slide is just a time series graph of that data showing some of these spikes are when we do notices. So we do a mass batch of emails, and you see a big spike in remain on Bright Choice. For example, we have this all mapped, and we're working very closely with those cities. We give them a monthly data update, including Google Analytics of their landing page and other things. So I think that's it for the presentation. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, are there any questions from the board? No. Okay, I have none either, so thank you very much, Dan. The next item is committee member and staff announcements, including requests to place items on future board agendas. Do we have any? Okay, well, that made things easy.
I would just go back, again and once again say thank you for that, you know, how we present ourselves to the public really matters. And I really appreciate, I think it gets better and better. So I meant to say that before we moved on. So that could be my announcement, I guess.
Yeah, and you know, be honest, I really hope that in 6 months we'll be on that our Union City's name will be up there to be moving over to Resilient 100. So we're just about there, I think. So yes, so our next meeting will be November 4th. And everybody take care and don't eat a lot of candy for Halloween, you know, before that. And this meeting's adjourned. Bye-bye.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Good night.
Nice seeing you, everybody.
Good afternoon, everybody. Have a good weekend.